Before we begin today, a brief content warning for today's episode. We are going to be discussing Small Potatoes, a Season 4 episode which does contain themes and depictions of rape. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And we're in the news void. Actually, no, you've got something, haven't we?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people, now that the kind of X-Files 30th anniversary conventions seem to all be done and dusted, that you can still visit the X-Files Preservation Collection in Saratoga Springs, New York, if you're ever in the vicinity. It is home to the world's largest collection of screen-used props, costumes and set dressings from the X-Files. And so it's very, very worth a visit if you are in the area.
Yeah, I mean, should we ever actually wind up in Saratoga, we'll definitely go have a look. It does sound pretty good. And I think they had a whole lot of guests for the opening, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. It looked like a really good bash, to be honest, and they had a recent convention there as well, which looked absolutely excellent. But for that address, you can find more details about them on their website, but they are at 4284 Route 50, Saratoga Springs, New York, 12866. So yeah, unfortunately, we're in the UK and we can't pay you a visit. We would absolutely love to if we did live local.
If anyone wants to set up a UK X-Files museum, we'll plug it and we'll go visit that one.
That would be more convenient for us.
Yeah, probably less appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think it'd have the draw as one in America, unfortunately.
True. I mean, if we do go there, I'm going to say now that we'll go there, we're also going to go to the Mothman Museum, because that's amazing.
I love that that exists.
I know. But for now, I suppose then we have nothing else to do but get to our episodes.
Yeah. What's up first?
First up, we have Synchrony, or Synchrony, or Synchrony.
I read it as Synchrony.
I read it as Synchrony. Directed by James Charlson, written by Howard Gordon and David Greenwalt. First broadcast on 13th of April 1997. Guest stars: Jed Reed plays Luke Menand, who was in Lake Placid. He's in Galaxy Quest, and he was in Deadpool.
Oh, that's all neat.
Joseph Fuqua as Jason Nichols, who was in an episode of DS9. Possibly of more interest is Hiro Kanagawa, who played Dr. Yonichi. He was in Godzilla, the 2014 version, because you have to specify it these days because there's too many Godzilla films now.
True.
This is the one with Bryan Cranston.
Okay, yeah.
That one.
Yeah, I remember.
He was also in 50 Shades Freed, the poor man.
Oh dear.
Orphan First Kill. He's also in an episode of Sliders and Star Trek Discovery. And then we get into the weird bits. Because he's a dub voice actor as well, so he's wound up in Inuyasha and Mobile Suit Gundam.
Aww.
He's also turned up once before in the X-Files and will turn up one more time in future.
He was Firestarter, wasn't he?
Firewalker.
Firewalker, that's it, yeah.
Can you guess the other one?
Is there another one that specifically requires someone of Japanese ancestry?
No, I think they just cast him like that. It's My Struggle episode 1, which is the first episode of season 10.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
But he's coming back for that. Okay, so we also have, and this is where the credits get a bit iffy, but I couldn't not do these ones because of who they are. Patricia Ladelette, who played the desk clerk. I can't remember which person that is, but she was in Drop Dead Gorgeous and in Ginger Snaps 2.
Oh, okay.
Here's a good one, though. Alison Matthews, who played the Doctor, who, as far as I can tell, is the one overseeing them when they were thawing the people out. She is Motoko Kusanagi in Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex.
Oh, really?
And Second Gig.
A dub actress, is that?
Dub actress. She was also in Inuyasha, and she'll show up in Millennium.
Oh, neat.
And last but no means least is Michael Fairman, who played the old man, who was in Dead Silence.
Yep.
Firefly.
Yep.
Seinfeld.
Yep.
Can you remember who he is in Seinfeld?
I can't remember him in Seinfeld. I remember him in Firefly.
Okay, so he is Penske, which, if you remember...
Oh, the Penske Files.
That's him.
Yeah, in Firefly, he's Andrei Nishka, isn't he?
He is. He's also been in Deep Space Nine, because of course he has, and he's also been in Cheers.
Ah.
At the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, cryogenics researchers Jason Nichols and Lucas Menand are embroiled in an argument as they walk down a city street. They are approached by an old man who warns Menand that he'll be killed by a bus at 11:46 that evening. Menand, of course, ignores him. The man is soon arrested by campus security, and his apparent prophecy is then proven true when Jason tries but fails to save Menand, who is promptly run over by the bus and killed at the exact time forewarned. Mulder and Scully investigate the case, learning that Jason was taken into custody after the bus driver told police that Jason pushed Menand into the path of his vehicle. Jason tells authorities that he was actually trying to save Menand. The security guard who arrested the old man is found frozen to death after exposure to a chemical refrigerant. Mulder interviews Jason, who explains Menand threatened to go public with a claim that Jason had falsified data on a research paper. The old man then proceeds to kill Dr. Yunichi, a Japanese researcher on the topic of biological vitrification for cryopreservation. He does this by pricking him with a metallic stylus, introducing an unknown chemical into his body. The agents approach Nichols' girlfriend and colleague, Lisa Iannelli, who recognizes the chemical compound as a rapid fusion agent that Jason has been engineering for years. However, she claims that the compound has not yet been invented, and if Yunichi was injected with the chemical, he may not be dead. With Lisa's help, Scully and a team of medical personnel successfully resuscitate Yunichi, only for his body temperature to rapidly increase until he spontaneously combusts. Police receive a tip that the old man is living in a nearby hotel. Inside the room, Mulder and Scully discover a faded colour photograph featuring Jason, Yunichi, and Lisa toasting champagne glasses in the cryobiology lab. Mulder deduces from the picture that the old man is a time traveller who is attempting to alter the future, and that he is none other than Jason Nichols. Lisa locates the old man and confronts him, however he injects her with the chemical after explaining Lisa will be responsible for the coming future. Scully successfully resuscitates Lisa. Jason confronts his elderly self in the computer mainframe room at the cryogenic lab, where the old man has erased all of Jason's files. The old man tells Jason that the success of their research made time travel possible, but also plunged the world into chaos. Jason lunges at the old man, choking him as he demands to travel back himself and save Lisa. Mulder arrives to news that Lisa has been saved, and the elder Jason wraps his arm around his younger self and bursts into flames, consuming both of them. As Lisa is loaded onto an ambulance to receive further treatment, Scully breaks the news to her that Jason died in the mainframe room. Mulder then reminds Scully of a statement in her thesis, which she asserts that, although multidimensionality suggests infinite outcomes in an infinite number of universes, each universe can only have one outcome. Which indicates that despite Jason Nichols effectively erasing himself from the future, the rapid fusion agent compound will be discovered by someone in the current universe, resulting in the eventual discovery of time travel. Later, Lisa sets to work attempting to reconstruct the chemical compound. I get that this is a Monster of the Week episode. It does not have any more bearing on anything in the world.
Go on.
But we have introduced the fact that the future's kind of set in stone, as per Scully's thesis, and the fact that the time travel worked at all.
I'm going to let you make your point and then I'm going to refute it, but go on.
Oh, okay. Well, I suppose it's in fiction. There's a few different ways of doing time travel. The most popular one is single stream, which is generally Back to the Future. Is your best example.
The one where you can kill your own grandfather.
Or you can't kill your own grandfather, because then you kill your own grandfather, you're not
and
born.
And then you don't exist, and it creates the paradox. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very much Back to the Future, though Back to the Future has it as a staggered, slowly occurring thing rather than an instantaneous thing. Or like, what was the Bruce Willis one with Joseph Gordon-Levitt? Looper, where they sent the ridiculous one that made no sense.
I have so many problems with Looper, but let's not get onto that.
Yeah, let's not get that. The other method, though, and less done, although people have argued you can make this Back to the Future work like this, is the alternate dimension thing, where you can't travel back in time to the past of your current timeline. You'll wind up in an alternate parallel one, which you can then wreck to your heart's content. And you travel back forward into the future. It's the future of that one, and
it's the idea that whenever you make a decision, the world splits.
Yes,
that kind of thing.
The quantum universe thing. Yeah, so by the estimates, where it's like 30 years in the future when it's become viable.
Mm-hmm.
This guy could tell us loads of interesting things, but no, he's just going to burn everything down. What's your refutation, though?
Scully's wrong.
Yes, I think that was noted somewhere, wasn't it?
It's the picture. You specifically have the photograph in the episode that can't exist.
Yes.
Which shows that you can change the future.
That's a good point, because Yunichi's already dead by that point.
Yep. So the photo should have changed or disappeared or something if Scully's thesis is correct.
I mean, you could then make the argument that this isn't single stream at all. This is multi-universe things. So he's traveled back in time to stop it. He's not doing anyone any good at all. And also, I think it's kind of like also like the Terminator with the attempt to stop the thing happening by using time travel introduces it. You could also do the trashy one of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, which does as well, which is hysterical. But it's if he hadn't said that thing to Lisa about tachyons, yeah, she's not going to find that out.
I think the thing I read into this episode more was it works the way time travel does in Steins Gate, which is also kind of how Doctor Who has it as well, where you have fixed points in time. So you have the events that have to occur and, kind of history will rewrite itself to ensure they occur.
Yeah.
Because in Steins Gate, the whole plot revolves around him trying to save his childhood friend, and he finds that her death is a fixed point in time, and that every time he does it, just history rewrites so she dies in a different way.
To increasingly ridiculous ways up until the armed forces storming into their apartment, I seem to remember.
Yeah, but it's that idea of you can change little things that are insignificant, but if it's something that will have a major ripple effect on history, you can't change it, which in this case could be the creation of time travel.
Very true. There is an interesting point, though, and it's one of these little difficult bits of the X-Files where the monster of the weeks are unmoored from the conspiracy. In that, we could then take it as read that despite the fact they seem to be ramping up the colonization program or whatever's going on in the conspiracy, humanity actually has a good 30-year point here where it's not going to happen. Otherwise, you'd think he'd come back and say, oh my god, aliens are taking over the world, you have to do this to stop them. Not, I have to erase time travel. And I'm also going to throw you an unusual bit here, because I just vaguely remember this beforehand, but it is a description of what the problem is when they've developed time travel. It is actually not clear if time travel as a thing is done, or they can simply view all events. It's very unclear that, because the medical implement implies that this is how he travels back in time, and basically he needs to be kept cold, otherwise he's going to blow up.
Well, it's that quantum theory at the moment where time travel is theoretically possible, humans can't physically do it.
Yeah, and you can only do it by basically turning him into Mr. Freeze. It also makes me think a bit of H.P. Lovecraft, the Cool Air, where he has to be kept cold. But anyway, so yeah, well, it's not clear if time travel is actually done. It's now plausible. It's not clear if anyone else has ever done it. However, his depiction of the apocalypse, not so much apocalypse as in kind of dystopian universe, I took it more, is that history is stopped and there are no secrets because anything ever can find out. Which, of course, makes me think of Bob Shaw. Other days, other eyes.
Kind of. I can see what you're getting at with Other Days, Other Eyes, and I appreciate your kind of obscure retro sci-fi reference there.
I would invite you to explain to any listeners who might not be familiar with his work, given he is a bit more obscure despite having some big concepts. Because I haven't read this book, and I know you have, but you've given me the gist of it enough.
Yeah, Other Days, Other Eyes is a old sci-fi novel. It was written by Bob Shaw, and I believe it actually won the Nebula Award, or at least was nominated for it many, many decades ago. He's a family favourite in my family. But the story Other Days, Other Eyes is about the invention of a sort of glass called slow glass that is originally developed to be a protective kind of windscreen for planes, but it causes a load of plane crashes because they discover that light passes through it too slowly, and therefore the pilots aren't seeing things as they actually happen. So at first, slow glass becomes a kind of recreational sort of thing, they have slow glass farms in beautiful land spots that absorb a view for 10 years that you can then put in your own windows and look at. And it all seems nice and happy and innocent. But then you get into the kind of less nice uses for slow glass, because a big plot point in the novel revolves around slow glass being used to solve a murder, but they've got to wait 10 years to see the murder actually occur in the slow glass. And from this, you realise at the end that the government are kind of weaponising slow glass by kind of sprinkling it over fields and stuff like that, so they can permanently surveil everything all the time. And you get that kind of dystopian dread at the end of it, is the fact that now every government in the world will know everything that you do at every moment of the day because of slow glass.
And that's the implication I get from there's only a very handful of lines of how he describes the future, but that's the implication I get from it. I do get this sense, though, in Synchrony, it's a lot more controllable. You don't have that time lag that Other Days, Other Eyes has.
It's really slow build in Other Days, Other Eyes, whereas it seems like it occurred a lot faster in this one from the creation of time travel. But I do like the idea from an utter nihilistic approach, is that by knowing the future, you've removed hope.
Well, knowing the past, you've removed hope, I think. It's not clear if you can travel forward either.
No, that's true. No, you must do, because he says nothing's ever a surprise anymore.
I suppose so.
So that's why you've lost hope, is you know exactly how the future's going to play out. So you have no hope. Say you saw, which is actually the basis of this episode, is their inspiration was, what would Oppenheimer do if he had time travel and could go back and stop the strike on Hiroshima? But it's that same idea as imagine you had this glimpse of the future and you knew, say, London was going to be levelled in a terror attack, and you just knew it was coming. You knew that maybe your family would die in it, and you knew there'd be nothing you could do to stop it. It's utter nihilistic dread.
It is. Although, as you point out, the episode itself does show that you can alter the timeline. You don't know to what extent you can divert it, but you can change it.
Or it's just something that the writing team have kind of plot holed themselves with the existence of the photograph.
Well, given, and I know it feels like I just keep kicking him, it's like Howard Gordon's involvement doesn't fill me with confidence. He's worked it all out.
Apparently it was really clumsily written as well at the time, and Gordon has said he'll never write another time travel plot because of it, is that they were revising the script constantly on set as they were filming it because they realised that they hadn't explained things well and they were worried about the audience being confused by the concepts. So they said that even there were whole scenes that were just written on set and shoved in there and things like that.
That would explain a few things.
It explains a lot of the holes and the fact it doesn't hold together well, but I do think they did get across what's going on well enough. It's not confusing for the audience.
No, and I think, though, the handful of lines are evocative enough to give you the sense of why he's been driven to this extreme to actually murder himself. Where I think it falls out is it's really a problem with almost every time travel story you can ever point to. I mean, I think maybe H.G. Wells skates by on being technically the first, and also he didn't bother with sort of traveling back in time. He was strictly going forward, which alleviates a lot of the problems you have. Going back in time is when you get complicated.
True.
But yeah, I mean, as an idea, I think Synchrony is great. It's still, the basic premise is really neat of Percy going back in time to stop himself from developing time travel.
I think it really hooks you from its opening sting as well, because a couple of weeks ago we had Unrequited and we talked about the lame opening sting on that and things like that. But this one, with the kind of an old, frantic, seemingly insane man rushing up and saying, I know that man's going to be killed by a bus at this time, and then it playing out.
Yeah.
You're not sure at that point if you're dealing with psychics or precognition in some way, or time travel as we have it, or anything like that. It's a really good hook.
Exactly. So I do like that one. Sort of weird other things is Lisa as a character is so confusing because she doesn't look distinct enough from the Samantha clones. It's not her. I did check this. But
I didn't think it was her, but
she looks
I agree
a lot like
she does. Yeah, look really similar to the Samantha from Colony.
Yeah. It's one of the ones we kind of want Mulder to sort of double take and say, what? Oh no, wait, you are someone else. We do have to have some words. As much as time travel is a subject, you always have to say, we're going to have to put this to one side because in terms of known physics, quantum mechanics, everything else is theoretically plausible. Practically, it's absolutely impossible. So we're just going to have to leave that to one side. Man heating up to the point he spontaneously combusts, on the other hand, is a level of weirdness I don't think you normally get. Plus, the temperature thing, though, is he's getting up to like 110 degrees Fahrenheit, isn't he? Or is it centigrade?
I presume because we're America, it must be Fahrenheit.
Yeah, and that's having fever kind of temperature. That's not igniting temperature.
I'm not sure about temperatures like that, to be honest, but I did look up how cold he was, and he wasn't actually as cold as I expected.
No, because it's in Fahrenheit again, and it's actually...
Yeah, I can't remember what the temperature is. It 15 Fahrenheit?
Something like that.
It's something like negative 30 centigrade.
Yeah,
It's very cold, but it was not the level of cold I was expecting.
For the whole... It's when she sort of comes out and says, he might not be dead, is you really need to be talking about near absolute zero. And the other thing, and this is a weird one for me because I actually did a whole load of cryogenic stuff when I was doing my biology stuff in A-levels.
Okay.
And so the whole thing about the rupturing of cells when you freeze them is absolutely a problem. And this is one of the biggest impediments to real-life cryogenic stuff.
Like we saw in Roland in the X-Files.
Yeah, and the only solution anyone has got really is to like remove the blood and pump a kind of sort of non-freezing solvent into your bloodstream instead.
So antifreeze.
Antifreeze. And basically it's not going to do any good when they thaw out because you've got no blood, you've got unusable goop in there. And that doesn't do any good about the interior cells, which are still going to rupture when you sort of freeze them. So his little scalpel pokey thing is implied to be introducing the solution that stops the cells to actually sort of do what Unichi is trying to do ultimately. But then it has to spread around his whole body to be effective, and you'd think you'd have to do this in a more controlled process to freeze someone than just poking them with a little implement, which still seems to have the freezing compound, not the simultaneous freezing and also make you antifreeze.
It's presumably why he bursts into flames at the end, is that he's having to take this compound himself.
Yeah, that's how I got it. It's that basically again, it's cool air. He has got to the point where he needs this to, because he's looking hot and sweaty when he comes back into that hotel room.
Yeah.
So this is keeping him alive.
It's very dramatic, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, it's also the other bit that didn't make sense is they don't find his body.
No,
because they say we only found Jason's remains, and you could take that as which Jason did you find? At the same time, that fire can't have been hot enough to completely eradicate the old traces of another person.
I'm assuming you're going on the fact that because he's changed history, he wasn't there to go back, which brings the whole grandfather paradox in, and it starts to hurt my head, to be honest.
Yeah, but then that should also mean those days' events wouldn't happen. So you then wipe out.
Well, that's your Looper effect. Is the thing that really frustrated me when I saw Looper is the torture scene in it.
Yes, that doesn't make any sense.
Where you have the guy who's kind of trying to run to warn Bruce Willis, and he's losing limbs as he goes because he's being tortured in the past or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense whatsoever. That's not how it would work.
No. I do like that the old man has pretty good memory of what's going to happen, so he seems like he can intercept Yunichi at the hotel to get him on his own, which is a nice touch. Although, admittedly, though, you've got to wonder about Jason as an old man saying, I'm going to go back and stop time travel developed. You could have done more preparation, because since you've got time travel, you're not limited on your time frames in the same way. So he could, I don't know, insert himself into other sort of organizations and stuff, rather than just being a slightly out of breath old man who keeps running up to people to give them cryptic warnings.
Yeah.
There was another way you could do this, Jason. I'm guessing it's the desperation of, no, basically the world is doomed. I need to do something right now.
The episode has some really nice parts to it. I like its structure. I liked how fast-paced it was, and it got you into there fast. I also like the prosthetics in this episode, because sometimes, X-Files CGI and or prosthetics look really ropey, but like the effects of the frozen Dr. Yunichi and things like that looked really good.
Oh yeah, and the frozen campus security guy.
And even things like when Yunichi was stabbed and the gradual freezing of his hand looked pretty effective in the CGI.
That's true.
It wasn't on our ropey levels of the worms in ice and things like that.
They look fine when they were mealworms.
Superworms,
Superworms,
yeah.
I suppose one thing we could say is there's definitely a sense of Mulder kind of reading the script again, because he fastens on to time travel pretty quickly.
I think the more obvious answer would have been psychics, given we've seen psychic people in the X-Files before.
Exactly, and I mean, even for Scully, time travel is just a complete misstart. And the other thing about they've got that photo, which literally shouldn't exist, and it's one of these things where in 1997. The idea of mocking that up would be extremely difficult. You'd have to get someone who actually is very skilled with airbrushing and stuff. These days, Photoshop can knock you that feature up in no time.
Yeah, Mulder did put it by the FBI experts who said it couldn't be faked as well.
But then, given some of the other FBI, it's one of these things where you discover that some of the FBI science is kind of bunk. It's a case of how much would they have said to Mulder at the time, oh, it's definitely genuine, and they actually had no idea. Yes, it's actually a composite photo. This is actually just a crazy old man who's suffering from spontaneous human combustion.
I think you've also got some weirdness in there, and I appreciate it's the old man being thorough, but as he is Jason himself, he must know that Jason is not the one who creates time travel, it's Lisa. So why not beeline straight and kill Lisa?
Yeah.
Why mop up all the small fry first and work your way round to Lisa?
Well, I took it as, and it's why he lets her go when he has that confrontation with the first time, is he's a slave to his emotions and hormones. Is he can't bring him. He set off with the intent of doing this. He can't actually make him. At the first, he couldn't make himself do it.
But his resolve breaks in about 15 seconds.
Well, I take that as. It's when she comes to confront him, and he then explains exactly why she needs to die.
He's talked himself into it.
Well, it's also the realization that he's given her the information she needs now, and now she absolutely cannot be allowed to live. The most generous way I can take that. If he hadn't said the thing about tachyons, he might let her walk out that room again.
Yeah, true. He's revealed too much.
Yeah, and now there is no reason why she can live. Kind of got to say that, Jason, there are other ways of killing people that can't be worked around. I mean, I am still a bit iffy about how Scully successfully de-thawed Lisa this time.
Don't knock it. This is the one time that Scully has first aided someone and not killed them.
That's true. It's quite funny because, her temperature was right back in the tub. Yunichi burst into flames a lot faster than she did.
True.
There is a sense as well, though, and I'm not sure to attribute this to Howard Gordon or not, is that kind of the referencing of Scully's thesis is something we haven't seen him do in absolutely ages.
Mm.
And I think you actually found out that that breaks continuity based on her age.
Yeah, she says she's 23 when she wrote it in this episode, and if we take it onto the fact that Scully had to have her medical degree, her residency, and at least 2 years teaching in Quantico before she joined the X-Files, she'd have to be 20 when she wrote the thesis, otherwise it doesn't add up, there's just not enough time.
No.
Just unfortunate, I guess, not kind of counting back right.
Yeah. And again, it's all some nice continuity stuff we've got going there, but you've messed up the timing.
Mm.
Do you have anything else for this episode?
Yeah.
Cool.
I already said Scully actually successfully first aids someone for the first time ever in this episode.
That's true.
Well, it's not exactly first aid, but she does treat Lisa so she doesn't die.
I would say, to be fair, she got Mulder back to health in Endgame.
Yep, true.
I think we can say that if it's weird science stuff, she can do it. If it's basic first aid, she will murder the people.
On the flip side, Mulder totes murders that guy at the end.
Oh, yes, this thing. Yeah, go on then.
Mulder runs in to see Jason and older Jason fighting behind a glass window.
Yeah.
He says Lisa is alive, which is the point where old Jason immediately murders young Jason by holding onto him and bursting into flames.
So apparently he could just do it on command.
Yep. Mulder has a gun on his person, could use the gun to shoot out the windows, as we've seen him do before. Instead, he picks up a fire extinguisher and smashes in the window, then stands watching the two men burning to death through a hole in the glass, holding a fire extinguisher.
You've made me realise there's a further problem. Okay, so I'm pretty sure they're in a server room when they do this.
Yeah, it looks like a server room.
So server rooms take fires seriously. There's can't remember quite what the acronym is for it, but basically you get fire suppression stuff where you get those big computers. So the second he ignites, there should be gas coming down to extinguish the fire. The people might not survive it, but they will extinguish the fire.
Even in the 90s with the
Even in the 90s, this was a thing. Servers get hot and you don't want to let them catch fire.
So you have a smoke cloak that comes down.
Probably. I don't know quite what the term is, but those fire suppression systems will be in there, and it won't be water because you'll wreck the computer. It will be CO2, some other form of gas. But basically, yeah, he should not have been able to burn for that long with nothing happening. They'd have recovered both bodies.
Fair point. Even if Mulder hadn't just stood there holding the thing that could save these two men's lives.
Yeah, it's all very convenient.
I also am surprised that nobody kind of talks about spontaneous human combustion in this episode.
Yes.
Given, haven't we seen that twice now? Well, kind of. It turned out not to be human combustion in Soft Light.
Yes.
But in Fire it definitely was.
Yeah. So, as you said, the whole conclusion of time travel is not built on things they've encountered before, where psychics, pyrokinetics, and people who are possessed with black holes.
I just think it would have been fun to make the episode a sequel to Fire, where we've got all these psychic trappings, and then you look over there and realise that Cecil Lively's a janitor at the hospital or something like that.
Yeah. Sadly, as we know, unfortunately, Cecil Lively will never get another episode, and he's one of the ones we'd actually be okay with. We were fine when Tombs came out. That was fun. That worked. The other thing you just reminded me of is I love the security for this lab has the only, or one of the only ways you can circumvent the security based on a time traveler with a palm access point.
Yeah.
It's I know these things do exist. I'm pretty sure MIT isn't that much of a secure place, and especially not the cryobiology lab. You wouldn't just have an access card and a security guard there to sort of say you don't have access to this room.
I cite you the bizarre random weirdness is the only place I have ever worked that had palm reader security was a department store. And it is absolutely not where I would have thought that you would have this, but it was to get into some of the background doors, you had a palm reader to do it. And I've never used one any other place. And it strikes me that, it would be more something in a secure office than a department store.
Yeah.
But it shows you just can get them in these random places.
But think of every government place that Mulder's walked into to date. They're all keys, key cards,
yeah,
and sticking behind people. I know exactly. The only reason a palm reader is there is so you can have someone say, "Oh, you've already checked into the building, sir," and not come back out again. Literally the only reason also to make it easy for Jason to get in.
Yeah, I can't imagine any other way you could get around that unless it was a palm reader or a retinal scan.
Yeah, well, the retinal scan was my other one. But, I mean, he could just steal a key card. He's a time traveler. Think Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
You've got that exact setup is how you could do the perfect crime.
However, that's possibly a problem with this episode is he only time travels once.
Yes.
We've got a time travel concept and we don't really use it in the episode because you could have just been absolutely messing with everything throughout this.
Yep. And also, he's got no proviso for if he runs out into the traffic without looking or anything. Or he got hit by the bus that was going to kill Lucas.
Or he fails once and goes back even earlier to try again or something like that.
I mean, isn't there there's scope there actually for how he could have actually saved Lucas's life? Is just fling himself in front of the actual bus.
Yeah, true.
And I do think keeping Lucas alive, when you get down to it, and I think your comment about the rewrites kind of explains how this happened, is the extrapolated rationale for keeping Lucas alive is that he will then get Jason's grant terminated because of the falsification of data, which is actually Lisa's fault. However, while that sounds like a good first step, that doesn't stop the knowledge being imparted or them actually doing further research or being picked up by someone else outside of MIT. So keeping Lucas alive is kind of pointless.
Yeah, true.
And I don't know why he started with that. That should be like the last plan, is to try and keep him alive. Do you have anything else, or are we going to have to get on to murky stuff?
No, I think it's time to get on to small taters.
Okay, I've got some, at least some fun stuff for you before we get into the thick of it.
Okay.
Okay, so Small Potatoes, directed by Cliff Boyle, written by Vince Gilligan, and first broadcast on the 20th of April, 1997. Guest stars Darren Morgan, former writer, is Eddie Van Blunt, who was previously Fluke Man, all the way back in season 2. That's not the fun bit. And you know this next one. Christine Kavanagh played Amanda Nelligan, who has done a lot of voice work and a few live action appearances.
Okay.
So she was in Darkwing Duck, she was in Rugrats, she was in Babe, she was in Dexter's Lab.
As Dexter.
She's also been on Cheers.
Okay.
Was in an uncredited role in Frasier and Jerry Maguire.
Huh.
But now we get into the truly weird bits of the casting.
Okay.
So Paul McGillian played Angry Husband. He was in the live-action Crying Freeman from 1995.
Oh, good grief.
He was in Star Trek, the first of the J.J. Abrams ones.
Okay.
And he was in Death Note in 2017.
Is that the Netflix one?
It is. He was the principal.
All right.
But possibly more interesting is the second husband. This is the one I was laughing about.
Okay.
So Peter Kelamis plays second husband. Whatever. He was in Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
He was in Best in Show in a deleted scene.
Aw.
But he's also done voice work. He's in Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, cool.
He's Goku.
Oh.
See, I know enough about Dragon Ball Z to know that's the main character, and oh my god, that's him.
Incredible.
Yep. He's also been in My Little Pony, Friendship with Magic, and the more recent series.
Okay.
Various miscellaneous characters. He was also in Riverdale.
Oh, great.
And he's been in The X-Files before, and will be again.
Okay.
He was in Lazarus.
Okay.
He was in Fresh Bones. And he'll show up again in Mind's Eye.
Oh, yes, I remember that one.
Second husband.
Good old second husband.
So, and I know you probably don't want to, would you like to give us a synopsis for Small Potatoes?
Not really, but I will.
Okay.
I'm wearing my heart on my sleeves for how I feel about Small Potatoes.
You're not being subtle.
Our episode opens this time as a young woman called Amanda is in the process of giving birth to her baby. As doctors crowd around her, they ask about the father, and she reveals that the father is actually from outer space. As the baby is born, the doctor takes it aside and we see that it has a long vestigial tail. The doctor's comments on this infers that this is not the first time that this has occurred. We then cut to Mulder and Scully, who are en route to investigate the birth of 5 babies, all of whom were born with tails. Mulder is interested in this due to a tabloid rag that he has seen, which mentions about Amanda's comments about the father being an alien. As they arrive and speak with Amanda, it's revealed that that's a half-truth. Although the father was outer space, it is not actually an alien, but was in fact Luke Skywalker. And let us note, this is the character Luke Skywalker, not Mark Hamill. Scully does a paternity test on all 5 of the babies and discovers that they all share the same father. The parents of the children all blame the local fertility clinic, as all but Amanda had used this in order to get pregnant. While they are speaking with a doctor at the clinic, Mulder sees a janitor nearby and notices a scar on his lower back indicating that he once had a tail. As the man, Eddie Van Blunt, runs away, Mulder chases and manages to catch him. It is discovered that Eddie was indeed the father of all 5 children. Scully believed that he must have used Rohypnol, although Mulder questions how he could be in the position to give it to all of the women. Eddie manages to escape custody by transforming his face to look like the deputy who is booking him in, and knocks him out with a blow to the head. Mulder and Scully then visit Eddie's father and learn he was a former circus performer who claims he still has his tail. Mulder and Scully quickly realise that they're actually talking to Eddie when he addresses Mulder by name despite not having been introduced to him. The agents give chase, but Eddie manages to escape. He then transforms into the husband of one of the women he previously impregnated and hides in her house. When the real husband comes home early, Eddie transforms into Mulder and leaves the couple somewhat confused. In the meantime, Mulder and Scully search Eddie's father's home and find the desiccated remains of his father in the attic. Scully performs an autopsy on the body and discovers that he has an extra sheet of muscle underlying his entire skin. Mulder concludes that Eddie has inherited this and this is how he changes his appearance. Realising that Amanda is the odd one out, as the only person who didn't use the fertility clinic, Mulder visits her in hospital and shows her a photo of Eddie. Amanda does recognise him and says that she went out with him in high school, but stopped dating him because he was a loser who lacked any kind of drive or ambition. Mulder seems disappointed by this and leaves, giving her a rose as he does so, and making it quite clear to the audience that he is in fact Eddie. Mulder shows up shortly afterwards and realises that Eddie had just been there, disguised as him. Mulder searches the hospital for him, and eventually is attacked by Eddie in a locker room and knocked out. Eddie then locks Mulder up in the hospital's basement. Eddie disguises himself as Mulder once again and tells Scully he felt like the case was a waste of time and they should just return to Washington. Scully does not realise that this Mulder is a fake and leaves with him, leaving the real Mulder still imprisoned in the hospital. Eddie poses as Mulder all the way to Washington and presents the case to Skinner in a poorly written report. He then visits Mulder's office and apartment and becomes surprised that although Mulder is highly attractive and how Eddie would like to appear in life, he is just as much of a loser as Eddie. Later that evening, Eddie visits Scully with a bottle of wine and tries to get her drunk and seduce her. As a reluctant Scully is about to kiss him, the real Mulder breaks in and interrupts them. Realising that the jig is up, Eddie reverts to his actual form, which shocks Scully. A month later, Mulder visits Eddie in prison, and learns that Eddie has been given muscle relaxants to ensure that he can no longer change into someone else. Eddie then tells Mulder that he was born a user, but Mulder is one by choice, and encourages him to live a little.
Thank you. The biggest surprise for me revisiting this episode is Skinner outright states what the underlying problem is, but the episode and its tone completely fail to grapple with it.
Yep.
Given he sort of does sum up and says, yeah, Eddie Van Blunt is a rapist, and Scully agrees, and while all we can really come up to is that when this was done in the 90s, somehow this didn't trip anyone's alarm bells that this was totally rape, because the only way I can think of how that line got in is Scully is still thinking the Rohypnol thing, she's not thinking of the form shifting. Yeah. This, incidentally, this came up relatively recently with Revenge of the Nerds, of all things.
Okay.
So, this is a kind of shoddy 80s comedy. It's actually kind of a cult classic these days, and basically it's just nerdy guys go to university, have a terrible time because of the jocks. They set up their own geeky fraternity and get revenge on the jocks, ultimately. Along the way, though, there's a whole load of skeezy stuff, like putting a camera in the women's sorority house, as you might do, selling photographs of that image. But the key point I'm getting at is there's one where basically one of them dresses up in the same costume as one of the jocks, ends up sleeping with his girlfriend, and at the end of it takes the mask off. The girl is surprised, but then initially goes with it. But still, in actual legal terms, that was rape.
Yeah.
Which is what we've got here.
I think you often use the Brooklyn Nine-Nine quote where you say, cool motive, still murder. Yeah. It's cool motive, still rape. In the case of...
And we've got to say, Vince Gilligan, this is incredibly disappointing that this is a comedy episode.
It's the problem, and I've mentioned it in past episodes too, is that if you're doing a plot about rape, it should focus on the women.
Yes.
It should never be portrayed as the thing that happens to women.
No. And we shouldn't be putting Scully into this position where she's absolutely about to have this happen to her as well.
But we had Scully previously in Excelsius Day, in the one where Mulder was very dismissive about a woman's claims that she'd been raped, and Scully was entirely on the side of the woman.
Yeah.
Scully does not show that personality in this episode whatsoever, where
no, that's true.
They do the absolute worst thing you can do and play rape for laughs.
Yes. And it's impossible to get away from the comedic tone, because after initial kind of mysterious sting with the whole baby's tail thing from the father from another planet, it just drops on the Luke Skywalker thing, and that's cue to laugh.
You have the fact that, fair enough, it's not Amanda. Amanda believes that she has been impregnated by Luke Skywalker, and we won't get to the fact that she believes that Luke Skywalker is a real person.
We're not going to have to skip
But,
that.
she's happy because she does not believe she's been raped. This was a consensual relationship with Luke Skywalker. She doesn't know that's Eddie Blunt.
Yes.
All the other ones, it's an absolute shocker to them. They all believed that they'd been artificially inseminated with their husband's sperm. They discover that it was just some creepy janitors instead.
Yeah.
And they just go with this. There doesn't seem to be any anger, any resentment.
There should be some lawsuits.
Yeah, some lawsuits. In fact, this actually came out after a very famous case in America where it turned out that a number of women had not been IVF'd with their husband's sperm. It had actually been the doctor.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the actual doctor that did it now, but it was a huge scandalous case that was in papers, and it's presumably in part the inspiration for this episode.
Well, it's not the first time we've had this, because Eve also had the fact that she was tampering with pregnancies and substituting her own eggs into the process.
Yeah.
So the X-Files has tangled with this subject matter before and done it in a much more respectful kind of way.
But also, that was portrayed correctly, because when that was revealed and Eve killed
fired.
the husband, she was fired, but also the mother completely disowned herself from Eve and everything else.
Yeah.
Because, the child wasn't her child and had actually murdered her husband.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot darker, a lot more damage implication. You see the effect it has on the woman.
Yes.
Which we do not get here.
We do not.
Which is why I dislike this episode.
Completely valid. The other thing, when you were just doing a summary, I realised a weird one for the X-Files is, do you remember Conduit?
I unfortunately do. What are you getting at?
Do you remember the Conduit after the sting where Ruby's taken? It starts with Scully being called into Blevins' office and being shown the request for travel expenses to go to Lake Okoboji.
Mm.
And Mulder's source is a tabloid headline. That one required finessing to get that paperwork cleared.
Mm.
Mulder has presented a tabloid headline as the reason why they're showing up to this case.
True.
Skinner, what are you doing, for one thing? Or what is going on here? No consistency within the FBI. But yes, I think the biggest problem when revisiting this episode is the fact that it is constructed entirely as a comedy. And unfortunately, it's just like the grossest comedy. It's interesting to read contemporary reviews because most people really liked it. There's like one dissenter who actually did say, I can't laugh at subject matter given what Eddie is doing.
I think that's the problem, is I can see how it should be funny.
Yes.
It's very light-hearted. Eddie's a very kind of down-and-out, funny character, but I can't... It wants me to empathise with him, and you can't empathise with the rapist, which then tarnishes the rest of the episode.
Yeah, and there's lots of pot shots of Mulder being done all the time.
Mm.
I was thinking as well when you got to the end, the concluding part is Eddie's calling Mulder a loser.
Which he is, to be fair.
He is. And then Scully says, you're not a loser. And I think I can't help but feel it's not the intent of the episode, but if you zoom out a little bit, it's a case of, Eddie, yes, you are a loser, for all the reasons you think you are, also you're a rapist. Mulder has that over you in that he has not done this.
Yeah, true.
So, however you're going to quantify Mulder's life, is he's fine with how it is. I mean, really, do you think Scully's got a good life given she's gone home just to work immediately after leaving work? You're not in a position to judge anyone, Eddie. You've also got your father in quicklime in the attic, and they're just losing his social security checks.
The thing I do like about the episode is I enjoy the bit where Mulder, well, until he starts on Scully, but the bit where David Duchovny is playing the Mulder Eddie.
Yeah.
It's kind of always fun to see David Duchovny doing comedy because he does so very well.
He does.
Because his character of Mulder is so easy to lampoon, I think.
Exactly, and he does do it very well. Very game when it comes
So
up.
I thought the whole scene with Skinner is really good fun, and his reactions to going to Mulder's apartment and raising the favourite fan question of where on earth does Mulder sleep.
Yeah, and just the lone gunman on his answering machine kind of thing.
Yeah, the line with Skinner cracks me up a bit as well, with the whole, did you write this report? Well, you spelled the word Federal Bureau of Investigation wrong. Twice.
Yeah.
But again, it's all just tarnished by the
Yes.
subject matter.
Also, I didn't realise before, but in your sum up really made me realise, is the point where Eddie substitutes in for Mulder doesn't feel like it should work.
No.
Well, okay, so he's stalking Eddie around the hospital.
Yeah.
He's found the two men in the changing room, one of which is a doctor, one of which is, I think, an ambulance driver. And he handcuffs them up because he's not sure who is Eddie. Then he hears noise and goes off investigating. Basically, he's on the other side of the lockers and they're on the other side. Eddie bursts out the ceiling and knocks Mulder out. Then drags him away to a basement, strips him, and goes back, undoes the handcuff of both those two people, and then has to sort of deal with the fallout. Are you telling me that at no point did they sort of say, there's a lot of noise over there, what's happening?
Oh, hospitals are well known to be absolutely deserted, and he didn't pass anybody on the way to the basement.
The script is not that strong as well. I think it's kind of gunning for, because I think there's a comment from Gilligan is he got a reputation for writing serious episodes for a while now. They want to do something funny. And while a laudable thing to goal, Vince, you did it in the worst possible way you could have done. But I don't feel that even the structure is that well paid attention to either.
No. The end bit does seem very, very short.
It's very, there's not a lot of time of someone else having Mulder's life, is there?
Yeah, that climax after Eddie takes Mulder's place is, 10 minutes of the episode up. At absolute best, it's not as much of the episode as I remembered it being.
No, I thought it would be on for a bit longer. So, one of the other weird questions, and I can kind of see this from a whole, if you are a down-and-out stoner kind of person, you might not do it. But since Eddie can make himself look like anyone he wants to, is why is he still the janitor? Why didn't he go out and get work as a male model?
I think it's the whole thing that Amanda says where he's just got no ambition.
Yeah, but you can't have that be true and then have him ready to take over Mulder's life. Because he must have encountered other attractive people he wanted to take over the life of before. Or even make yourself look a bit like a film star and, distinguish them just enough that you don't get mistaken for them or you're not obviously mimicking them.
Well, he's proven that he can look like people exactly, even people he's seen on TV, because he must have convinced Amanda that he was Luke Skywalker, so he must be able to make himself the spit of Mark Hamill, for example.
Exactly. I mean, we don't get into, is this Mark Hamill in 1977? Is this him in 80? Post-accident? Is this him in 83? Is this him as he would have been in 1997?
But it's clear that Amanda's not that bright, or discerning at least, because she does believe that Luke Skywalker is a real person.
Yeah. And again,
he just didn't have his lightsaber with him.
Yes. And again, in another episode, all that setup would be great. And it's just, again, it's David Duchovny's expression when she says Luke Skywalker is absolute, that mortifying embarrassment.
I don't like rewriting episodes, as you know, but you could make it funny if he was an assassin, for example.
Yeah.
You've got him, he's changing form to kill people, and of course you have to work the premise. But, somebody who's seen Luke Skywalker murdering someone or something like that.
Yeah.
And, or various different celebrities that have appeared. Oh, yes, that was totally Walter Cronkite over there killing someone. I saw it clear as day. And you've got this kind of weird mystery in there. And you've still got his shape-shifting. And you could still have him taking Mulder's place and things like that. You just turn it into a comedy episode of, the Alien Bounty Hunter.
Yeah. Well, 3 points that can come off of that is, one, that's kind of goblins again. We keep coming back to goblins.
We haven't done goblins yet.
I know, but we keep coming back to it as a whole, the basic shape of
Goblins the book.
Goblins the book, yeah. Number 2 is Zoolander is basically that concept taken in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. 3 is Scully admitted she's seen a shapeshifter. Holy hell, I did not know she actually acknowledged she saw what she saw.
We knew she had seen one.
We knew she had, but they've never talked about it afterwards. And it's never been suggested as an explanation for anything previously, but now we've got Mulder saying to her, we both know what he saw, and she does not refute that she saw Mulder's shapeshift in front of her.
I think you've got another problem here is the fact that at the end of the episode, they're keeping Eddie drugged, so the doctors and police who've got him know what he is. And this, again, should be a medical marvel that we've got there.
Yes, I mean, it's like, again, like Fluke Man, this is a genetic abnormality. This will rewrite a whole load of known science. To have that level of control over the musculature layer that you can actually voluntarily shapeshift your entire body.
But with the father, you couldn't prove anything. It's just he's got this weird musculature. Oh, that's odd.
Yeah.
With Eddie, you've got a live specimen who we've witnessed shapeshift and we can prove he can do it.
Yep.
This is our kind of missing link sort of evidence here. This should be absolutely mind-blowing.
Yes.
Scully deserves a Nobel Prize for this, I think, or something like that. Her studies into this.
You've also got potentially 5 others. The kids.
Yeah.
Because this is implied to be hereditary.
If they've inherited the tail, that maybe they'll be able to do the shapeshifting too.
And now all we're going to discard all of this again. I think it's always been a point of this is a weird tangent. It's always been a point of debate of what the Gunmen talk about when they say they've got a digitized version of Dealey Plaza and saying you'll never guess where the third shot came from. And we've had memoirs of a cigarette smoking man, and while we can't be sure how true that was, if Cancer Man is relaying events accurately, all 3 shots came from a sewer grate, and none came from the bookstore. This might be an indication that that episode just wasn't true, because for the third shot to be significant, they have to sort of say, yeah, it's not come from the book depository or anywhere else.
Or the syndicates fed them some more lies.
There's that too. So, but I do like that this is like Mulder's pastime. Although, to be fair to the judgment of Geeks for Friends, is that Mulder usually turns down their offers, because they always offer him things, don't they?
Yeah.
And he very rarely takes them up on it. Which I think is a shame, because I think going out for pizza with the Lone Gunman would actually be really fun.
It was cheesesteaks, I think.
Yeah, it was cheesesteaks, but still, going out for a meal with the Lone Gunman actually strikes me as kind of an entertaining time.
I'd love it.
Yeah. Mulder, what are you doing? They'll be great. I mean, you don't have to watch Earth 2 with them. We do get a weird other confirmation of Mulder's porn habits and the fact that apparently he's on some subscriber list for chat lines? Question mark?
Very retro these days, having a chat line as well. It's not the kind of thing you hear about it.
No, but again, this is 90s. This is what you did. I mean,
I remember when some magazines had them advertised in the back of them and things.
So Mulder has a collection of porn he watches at work. He uses sex phone lines. He had a passionate relationship when he was at university, and apparently never again.
Which included having sex on gravestones.
Arthur Conan Doyle's gravestone, no less.
Yep.
Yeah, you get the impression that episode in season 1 is so far out of character, it's really strange in retrospect.
Especially as we've drawn attention to the fact again in this episode that there's nowhere to sleep in his apartment.
No, well, we have seen him sleep on his sofa before, or couch, or whatever you're going to describe it as. But, I mean, as much as you saw, there's a joke, there's an obvious door we've never seen inside of on next to the sofa. So, I don't know, maybe it's in there.
Presumably got a bathroom somewhere as well.
Well, you'd hope so. What kind of weird apartment does Mulder have? I mean, to be fair to him, people do break into it like every other week, so he probably should move.
Not to mention that time they drugged the water supply.
Yeah, and shot a guy in his hallway outside. Been bugged repeatedly. Someone shot Scully through the window once. I don't think we ever actually took any kind of fallout from that one.
Yeah, true.
I think we might be meandering a little bit.
I assuredly think that we are.
Yeah. Do we have anything else for this episode, or should we quietly flee from it and try and think about it again? Other than just speculate, the X-Files, I mean, it's one thing you get as an accusation a lot these days anyway, is male writers just don't understand what they're messing with, and it seems to be a very big thing in the 90s. The X-Files does keep tripping over it somehow. But, like, mystical pregnancies used to be a big thing. Like, even Star Trek Next Generation fell into this kind of trap at one point.
I think it's a problem we've seen with the X-Files writing team, is that the X-Files writing team so far has, not entirely, but largely been white men.
Yes.
So they're not overly sensitive with, like, any episode that involves a minority group or anything that focuses on women.
Yes. And there have been those handful of female writers, but they're surely not on the executive producer list.
Oh, I think Kalishari, for example, was one of the rare episodes with a female writer.
Yeah.
And you can feel it.
Yes. Despite being a very strange episode, wasn't it? I think Shadows was as well, wasn't it?
I can't remember, to be honest. I do remember that Kalishari was.
Yeah.
But it is a problem when you're trying to write outside your world of experience, I guess, as a white man. However, I still maintain it should be blooming obvious that rape isn't funny.
Yeah, and, well, again, I can only equate it back to this. This was a mindset, like the Revenge of the Nerd example, that this... I think it's adhering to the letter of the law rather than the spirit of it. Because it is technically consensual, there's the disguise component in there, and that seems to be what tripping them over.
Well, there's a line, and nobody contradicts him, which annoys the hell out of me, where Eddie says when he's caught early on, if everybody's happy and no one is hurt, where's the crime?
Yeah.
No, Eddie, that is the crime. You have literally raped 5 people.
You tricked them. They would not have consented to this had you not been disguised as someone else.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think it's that element of it that was not understood by a kind of alarming number of people and very across the entertainment medium, basically. Didn't understand it, didn't think the implications through. Everyone waved it through to the point where it actually got made, and if anyone challenged it on set, again, you can't help but think back to like some of the horror stories of production and just how women and minorities are treated on the whole. I would be surprised if Gillian Anderson and some of the other people did have misgivings about the episode and did not feel they could actually bring them up.
I admit, I was curious about what Gillian Anderson thought of the episode, and I couldn't find anything about it.
That's interesting.
I heard about David Duchovny saying how much he enjoyed it and how fun it was to do it and all the rest of it, but nothing from Gillian Anderson. I would be curious to know what she did think.
That's interesting. But again, it's the kind of thing where she could well have felt that despite all the X-Files success, if she speaks up too much, there's a good chance she's going to be quietly shuffled out of the series or something.
Yeah, true. In a series where she already has terminal cancer, which, again, we don't know to all in these 2 episodes.
That was what I forgot to bring up. Yeah, it's Scully cancer. What's that when it's at home? It's like, you'd think the time travel will actually sort of give her pause then.
Yeah, I think in this one too, I did understand that this episode was greenlit because they thought the series to date had been quite dark and they wanted something a bit lighter. But at the same time, I kind of expect it to be dark now. She's got a terminal diagnosis.
Yeah.
And then you've got this random, just silly episode in there.
Well, it's also like previously where Tempest Fugit had nothing about Scully's cancer and Max has like one 30-second sequence and then basically just back to business as usual.
We've barely mentioned it for about 6 episodes now.
No. And we have noted that this is the problem of having or trying to keep Monster of the Week and Conspiracy uncoupled from each other.
Mm.
But then you still got weirdness like you've directly referenced the shapeshifters in this episode about a human shapeshifter. We don't even get into, are we sure Eddie was human? I mean, admittedly, he doesn't seem to spray green corrosive blood everywhere, but you can't say he definitively say he wasn't just a shapeshifter that got adopted, or that his dad was a shapeshifter. Renegade alien has left the
You've
program.
got, going back to your Miracle Men theory
Exactly.
as well, with the kid that has all of Jeremiah Smith's powers that was found in a field.
Exactly. And I completely understand that no one was thinking about Miracle Man when Jeremiah Smith came round, but I think we're sort of seeing it over and over again, is that the writers aren't looking at what their series is built on a lot of the time. Or if they are, they're not really engaging with it properly. Because I still think it was more of a thing for Tempest Fugit and Max where you've got Max wrong. That wasn't what he was. He was a UFO enthusiast. He did not think he was a nerd adoptee. If he now thinks that, we kind of need to know how that has reshaped his life. Like, yeah, we knew he was a multiple adoptee, but he didn't. So it's disappointing. And again, it could just be the different era. And again, I keep going back to Doctor Who, where Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat were so involved with their series that they would alter parts of it to make the ongoing plotlines work. And whether that just didn't occur or it just wasn't a done thing at the time.
Mm.
That said, it was happening elsewhere because Babylon 5 was totally doing it.
I was going to cite Babylon 5 there for an example where this was actually occurring.
But again, Babylon 5 was kind of like the lead for it because it was really strange because it came out the same kind of time as Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine increasingly started trying to do Babylon 5 things. You had both sci-fi shows about a space station. Oh wait, we're going to try and steal their ideas.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. No, maybe stealing their orders is the wrong way of phrasing it, but it looked very much from a viewer's perspective that they were taking inspiration from Babylon 5's ongoing storyline in Deep Space Nine and then trying to replicate that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels odd that the X-Files is still a very kind of waving a hand without continuity unless you sort of really pin it down.
True.
Do anything else, or shall we head for the hills?
No, I think that's it for today.
Cool.
This episode was ultimately small potatoes.
Yeah. Next week, we get the episode I can never remember.
Well, that's interesting, coming after Unrequited.
I know. Zero Sum is an episode I remember how it starts, and I remember the point of it, and nothing else.
I don't recall it from the name, but I'm sure it's going to be one of those where I start watching it and think, oh, it's that episode.
Yeah, I can remember the gist. I can remember what it's for and why it happens. Can't remember what actually happens.
I think the other one is Elegy.
The other one is Elegy, which I seem to remember is one of the bleakest episodes we're ever going to have to handle.
I remember Elegy pretty well. It always makes me sad.
Yeah, that's
so not looking forward to that, but for different reasons than small potatoes, at least.
Yes. In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media. We are on Tumblr and Twitter at GetStrange42. We're on Mastodon at GetStrange42@universedon.com. And on Facebook, you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Also, if you're not sick of my voice by now, I also have a Twitch TV stream where I stream whatever I'm playing on the PS5 at the moment, which is currently One Piece Odyssey. You can find me on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. British summertime. Do note that's moved forward an hour now. I was just getting a bit close to my bedtime with that. And I'm also on Saturdays from 5 p.m.
Cool. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where we are trying to do a Let's Play of the first X-Files game. And we promise we will get to that shortly.
We really do need to get to that.
But we plan to do all kinds of weird things like the informative goblins, which we keep bringing up. We're going to have to actually do something with it because it's like, yeah, this is like a load of episodes, or it could have been the basis of a load of episodes, and it's just this novel that's out there and no one ever really talks about much.
Because it's not one of the better ones. When you've got Ground Zero, Whirlwind, Ruins, and things like that, which are a lot more enjoyable novels.
True. I mean, people were surprised they got Charles Grant to do the novel at the time, because I know there was a lot of speculation as to who's going to write the first one.
Okay.
And I don't think he was anywhere near anyone's sort of top pick. And having read both novels, and the fact that he very swiftly got replaced, you got to wonder, it's like, why did you think this was going to work?
I remember the novels pretty well. I read them over and over when I was a teenager. So, I do. And it'd be nice to read some more again. I'm kind of out of young adult novels until we get to the films now.
Oh, we've got the other two, the more recent young adult novels.
Oh, yeah, that's Agent of Chaos and Devil's Advocate.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't read either of those. I do have them somewhere. We have to have a look in at those too.
And we'll get to the varying comics over the years, the other video game, trading card game.
You're still hinging on that.
I'm hoping I'm going to be disappointed, I know.
Yeah. Do be aware that we have 3 tiers on our Patreon. They all come with different perks, but if you back us at any level, you'll be able to watch the special episodes. As Nick just mentioned, that'll be beginning with our Let's Play of the PlayStation game.
Our theme music is Vision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on Compotech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening. Until next week, please remember...
You're a damn good-looking man.